This morning I want to talk to you about a program that Trout Unlimited administers, indirectly anyway. Trout Unlimited, as you know, is a nationwide conservation group with the mission statement to conserve, protect, and restore cold water fisheries in the United States. And part of that mission is youth involvement and education. So what I'm going to speak to you about today is a program called Trout in the Classroom. And it's a really exciting and growing program that is part of Trout Unlimited. What is Trout in the Classroom? It's set up in some schools in Northwest Arkansas as well as all over the country, but the three active schools we have right now in our chapter are McNair Middle School in Fayetteville, Farmington High School, and Lincoln Middle School in Lincoln, Arkansas. We previously had setups in Huntsville, Arkansas, and in Pea Ridge, but both of those teachers left and nobody wanted to step in and take over. So, but the exciting thing is, and somewhat thanks to some work that Gary Henderson's and his perseverance with Cooper Middle School, we finally have a good established contact at Cooper, and Shannon Tweedy is interested in having a setup. This will be the first time we've put a Trout in the Classroom setup in an elementary school, but there's no restriction. It just happens to be our first. Also, I've been trying to get a contact at Gravette for quite some time, and now we have a contact and a very involved science teacher at Gravette High School. So we're going to add 2 new setups this year, so we'll have 5, and there's no limit. We just need some dedication from teachers and things that I'll get into later. Our chapter provides all equipment, and the teacher has to apply to the Game and Fish Commission for a permit. And part of the reason for the permit is there's a restriction, if you will, or it's highly controlled. At the end of the project, what's that banging?
Air from the...
Oh, okay, sorry. So anyway, the final step in Trout in the Classroom is to release the fry and the fingerlings into the river. And we'll go in more detail. And by the way, if you have any questions, hold them till the end. I may well cover them in the presentation. So one of our chapter members picks up eggs from the Norfolk Fish Hatchery and brings them back to the schools. And then the students and teachers and faculty get involved. They watch and monitor some conditions and just enjoy the progress. The TIC setups, and this is not a very good photo, but it's all I had right now, consists of an aquarium, a 55-gallon aquarium with rocks. It looks like a basic aquarium, but it's got much more sophisticated temperature controls, a chiller, and air pumps, and all the things that are necessary to maintain viability in an aquarium, but a little more controlled because of the sensitivity of these small fish. The cost of these setups is about $1,400. The chiller alone is $500 to $600, and then the aquarium's about $300, and then a lot of things that you can't see. All the components, the chiller and temperature monitors and things are hidden behind a board right there. So there's a lot more to this that I wished I'd had taken time to get a more complete setup, or photo of how intricate the system is. And then the eggs themselves are put in a Whitlock Vibrant Box, which I'll show you in more detail. Those of you that have seen my presentation on our egg planting project over at the Beaver Tailwater have seen these boxes. The trout eggs, due to the timing of the school year, we are required to use brown trout eggs because they spawn and hatch in the fall, and so that kind of fits into the normal school year. A little hard to see, but all of the little orange balls in the background and those in my hand are trout eggs. So that's what we're working with. The Whitlock Vibrant Box is a special box. A little bit of history here, designed a long time ago by a French scientist. And then Dave Whitlock, who is a kind of a local legend in this part of the country especially, made some changes to the box, but you can't see it very well. The box has two compartments, a lower compartment and the upper compartment, and they're separated. You can see it a little better here. The box will come, very, very poor picture, but in the upper part of that box, the whitish material, those are trout eggs. There's about 150 of them in there. And then in the bottom is some gravel just to weight the box down, and then you can see the gravel in the bottom of the aquarium. And the Trout Lifecycle is, they're from going clockwise. Number one there are eggs. Those hatch and form alvin. And you'll notice on the alvin they've still got the egg sac attached to them. That's their source of nutrients in their early stage of life. And then they become fry, and they're free swimming, ready to go then. And at that time, when they reach the fry stage, they'll swim out of that Whitlock Vibrant Box into the open stream, or in this case, the aquarium. And subadult, adult, and on into their remaining years as spawning adults. And our experience has been, these are not always successful. You know, again, it's a very, very controlled but tricky environment. So like in Mother Nature, we don't always have success or don't get 150 hatchlings out of the eggs. In nature, under normal circumstances, the normal hatch rate is about 5%. So only about 5% of the eggs laid actually hatch and become viable offspring. So, but with this process, we can actually beat that. We've had 100% hatches in some, and we've had 0 in some. And it's amazing to see how excited and involved that the teachers, the faculty, the custodian, the students, they hang around these aquariums anytime they can and watch it. It is fascinating to watch the life stages of these. And it's a very heavy commitment on the part of the teacher. There's a feeding schedule. Once the fry have reached a certain stage, there's a feeding schedule. And oh, by the way, they got to be fed over Christmas break. They got to be fed over Thanksgiving break, spring break, and so somebody's got to be available, usually the teacher, to go in or arrange for a substitute to go in and feed these fish, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, until they're past the alvin stage, or I'm sorry, after the alvin stage, because again, as I mentioned, they're feeding on that egg sac up till that point. And like I say, get really excited about it. This guy may be slightly exaggerating, but anyway, it is a very interesting and exciting to watch the stages of these. One thing that we have to watch for, and actually we watch for these initially, you'll notice the egg pictures that I showed previously were kind of orange colored. Well, if they turn white, then they're dead, and those need to be removed from the system. Otherwise, they start to rot and put toxins into the water. So those are some dead eggs that were extracted. There's on your left is an alvin with its egg sac, and then on your right are fry that are past the egg sac alvin stage and into their next. Then you got to grow them up, so continue feeding as much as necessary until the release date. So this process runs from approximately October to May. So as I said, it's a very big commitment on the teacher's part and on the school's part too. And usually in May we'll have a release. And I might mention too, this is heavily controlled by the Game and Fish Commission, especially when it comes to where the fish are released. These are cold water fish. We've only got really one cold water stream in our area, and that's the Beaver Tailwater below Beaver Dam. So we've had, and it gives us a black eye. It wasn't any of our schools, but some schools in northeast Arkansas got their fry hatched and ready to release, and they just took them out to the closest stream. Well, it brought the wrath of you-know-what from the Game and Fish Commission. It endangered the entire program in Arkansas because somebody decided they didn't need to follow the rules. But, to release trout into a non-trout stream, first of all, they may not survive, but if they do survive, then you've introduced a non-native or an exotic species into an environment that it doesn't belong in, and it might or might not survive, and it might or might not create problems in the future. So fortunately, with our reputation, we didn't get drug, our chapter didn't get drug into that fracas over in the northeast part of the state, but there was the threat was they weren't going to allow them to do that anymore. And how tragic that is for the educational process and their school system and their kids. There's a lot of monitoring involved. Oh, by the way, we did have a release this past May from McNair Middle School, and we made the release over at the Beaver Tailwater in conjunction with a streamside cleanup that the chapter was hosting. So, which always involves a lot of school kids and outdoor education classes from Bentonville and Rogers and others. There's constant monitoring. I mentioned this was an October to May process, so besides the feeding, very close monitoring of the water conditions in this area, because it's a confined space, so things can go sideways in a hurry. But they're monitoring pH, the alkalinity or acidity of the tank, byproduct chemicals that are produced by just normal life process. A big one is ammonia that's given off by their fecal matter, but nitrites, chlorine, all of those chemicals or minerals listed are important. And of course, very important, these are cold water species, and the temperature must be maintained in a certain range.
What is that range?
I don't remember, but somewhere somewhere between 40 and 60 degrees, 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, is in general. Here's, you probably might not can read this chart, but this is a chart of the ideal tank environment that the teachers watch for and try to maintain. It doesn't give temperature. Yeah, I'll give you an example. The temperature of beaver tailwater is typically pretty consistent, 46 degrees, mid 40s. So, but if it gets up above 65, the trout start to stress, and much above that, and it's fatal. So again, it's not an exact science. We're dealing with Mother Nature and trying to do this inside. So we lose 1 to 2 tanks of fish a year. We even have a suspected case of sabotage. Maybe not intentional, but it's tempting if depending on where the tank is set up, it's tempting to go by and, hey, I'll just throw some food in there, and so you can overfeed. But yeah, we've had some suspicions about one of the tanks, and another thing that they have to watch very closely for is called ick. And you can read that scientific name yourself, but it is a parasite that can get on the fish, particularly in a closed, small environment like they have. But it's so that long Latin name is shortened to ick. And see all the white spots on this fingerling? That's ick. So it's pretty easy to spot, but if it gets to this stage, it's pretty lethal, and it's not going to be just on one fish. And the culmination of this basically 8-9 month project is to have a tank full of fish that you can load up from the aquarium and take over to release. That's McNair's hatch. Take them to the beaver tail water in this case, and release them in the river. Observations from one teacher who's been at this for about 3 years now is that this educational tool has increased her ability to raise environmental and conservation awareness among her students and really get them engaged in a science related project.